Ladies and gentlemen, there have been motherfucking updates. Look at this beautiful starting screen. Look at this, we have custom mode now. We could continue in custom mode. The gods have blessed us. Onwards and upwards, fellow friends. Now today I've come to show you a little bit of the new iOS update. They've put a ton of stuff in. It's mostly stuff that Switch already had, and it's so good to finally see it in the iOS game. It feels like we're finally getting the attention that we've craved for so long. So, you can see up here actually, there's Kill Rhythm up here, which is one that was not previously on iOS. So we're moving up in the world, lads, alright? We're moving up in the world. Now, one of the real fun things that we have over here is the Oven Axe, which we didn't have before. Now, the Oven Axe is quite possibly one of the most meaty things you have ever seen. It does 3 strikes, and after the 3rd strike, you turn into a motherfucking Beyblade of Death, because every hit after that 3rd strike is just gonna crit. So, give me a sec. Bam! You don't even need 3 hits, it does so much damage. It's so slow, but it does so much damage. This is like the first time I saw the Scythe Claws. It is ridiculous. Bam! Bam! I am now a Beyblade of Death. Let me through, sir. Ow. Screw you. Bam! Bam! 1, 2, 3. Go, you bastard! Schmack! Look at that shit, man! I'm just a fucking Beyblade of Death! Yeah! Here. Obviously, because it's very slow, Beyblading around the entire time is not actually an effective strategy if you don't want to be racking up that malaise and those losing all your hit points. But it is very fucking fun. Just gonna be creating a survival run today, and they've actually made survival runs way more doable in this update. I think they increased some of the damage on survival weapons. They made them slightly slower, and they actually changed a lot of the assortment of various kind of various weapons to make them align with survival, which makes the entire just kind of guild much more playable, I'd say. Oh, so meaty. Just have a look at that amulet. They also nerfed the, so if we look in here, we can see that they've nerfed the items, so there's no scrolls on items at the moment, which is actually interesting. It's made the game a lot harder in higher boss cells, because prior to this, it was actually almost easier to play it in 5 boss cells than it was in 3, because in 5 boss cells, you got like a ridiculous amount of scrolls in your items, which made the game a lot easier. So, overall, I think they've made 5 boss cell mode a lot harder in this update, which I kind of enjoy, because I think it's got to be quite a challenge, because it is the highest difficulty game mode. Oi. So, as you can see, yeah, you got to be really careful about kind of putting that damage on, because it can happen very fast. Oh, but when you absolutely destroy somebody, you absolutely destroy somebody. Bam. Boom. Bada bop. Very fun. So recently at school, it's been pretty busy. I've got a lot of stuff going on at the moment, so I really ought to not be making this video. Realistically, I should put this down and rack off and go do some work. But, I have a very special person out there that I know enjoys these and might be needing one due to how they are at the moment. They're not having a great time. So if you're listening, this goes out to you. You know who you are. And yeah, really enjoying. In fact, Dead Cells was a gift to me from that person many years ago. I think it's 2 years ago now, so quite a long time for a high schooler. And the way I am is I tend to get obsessed with something, burn up literally everything I can about that thing, and then become bored with it and move on. It's what I do to songs often. And it's certainly what I do to games. I'll get interested in the game, I'll play it quite a bit for a short amount of time, then I'll get over it and not play it for several months. But Dead Cells is possibly the only game ever that hasn't happened to me with. This has been probably my most played game for about roughly equivalent to a year, 2 years even. Just because I love this game and it's attached to those memories for me. And I think that makes it really special. So yeah, my review of the Oven Axe, I don't think I'd take it if I was off to kill the king. But I'll tell you guys something really sneaky that I figured out. If you can manage to find a colorless Oven Axe, which I assume would be pretty hard to find, because the Oven Axe seems to be relatively rare as far as I can see. But when I first unlocked this blueprint, I got a colorless version, and if you can make an Oven Axe gel with a melee run, you can get Porcupack. And Porcupack has to do with the backpack, which is another thing that they added in this update. So in your backpack, you can store a weapon, which is actually one of the things I was really hoping for. So between the iOS updates, being able to store weapons that you're not using, it feels like the devs have answered all my prayers. But there's various mutations that can do really cool stuff with your backpack, and one of them is the Porcupack, which is when you have a melee item in your backpack, rolling through enemies does certain portions of that weapon's base damage. So obviously, some weapons are going to be more effective than others for that, and you have to level up your melee. Your Brutality, that is. But because I was doing a Brutality run the other day, and I had that colorless Oven Axe, what I was able to do was I was able to put an Oven Axe in my backpack, and I was able to use that Oven Axe in Porcupack, which was fucking broken. Because if you level up your Brutality enough, you do 99% of the weapon's base damage. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the Oven Axe's base damage is fucking massive. Like, it is so large. This thing is meaty. But the thing is, rolling is a lot faster than swinging the Oven Axe. So by rolling through enemies, not only are you rolling to avoid attacks, you're simultaneously doing as much damage as the Oven Axe, much faster than the Oven Axe can do it. So that was a broken loadout. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show it to you guys because I did die with it. But yeah. So I'm not expecting to be able to go very far with this loadout, but I'm going to take it as far as I can to try and give you guys the full review. Who knows, maybe I'll even encounter some other of the new stuff around. Another new thing is that we've got this little guy to talk to instead of the Collector in 5 boss cell mode, which is nice. Not that I have too much to talk to him about. I'm gonna unlock the Tesla coil soon, which looks awesome. I've been to the brewery for the first time, and that was incredible. I mean, I'm constantly astounded by the amazing kind of care that's been put into this game. It always astounds me. It's such a good game. I could not recommend it more if you're into anything of this kind of sort. I don't think of myself as an overly violent person, but I really, really enjoy the satisfaction you get when you cleave an enemy in two and you feel like you have the might of God on your side, you know? Absolutely. Just, I guess that's what Dead Cells gives to me, and, yeah. Of course, I don't always have time for it. Like I said, a lot of school assignments at the moment. So it's been a rough time, guys, but overall, we're doing pretty well. In the grand scheme of things, we're doing okay. Opa. There's a little pro tip. Cluster grenade is always best used right next to a corner, because more of the grenades will land in the same place, which allows you to do the absolute max of damage on any one given target, which I think is always a good idea. Now, we'll see how I go against this elite. I'll start with a... Oh. There's another new aspect of the Malaise. These days, they changed it so that high enough Malaise tiers, enemies will randomly start spawning for you, which has pretty drastically changed the way I play the game, given that I like to kind of constantly be killing every single enemy I come across. I think I might take this amulet, just because it's got some decent stuff. Moving onwards. I did take a little bit of damage from that elite, which I'm not too happy about, but we'll see how it goes. It would be good to have some sort of freezing synergy with the axe, because I think the axe really benefits from having some way to stun enemies so that you have that time to get the hit on them. Like, see there, it was so slow that this guy managed to explode. Oh, yeah. I should have noticed that. The oven axe is so slow that a kamikaze bat can come up to you and explode before you've swung that first swing, so, very hard to deal with, but it's so fun. 2 extra jumps in midair is a very good mutation to have. I always really enjoy having it. I definitely miss it when I don't. The giant killer is very useful in 5 boss cells. It's another new weapon that we didn't have before. It's very useful in 5 boss cells because especially the bosses have so much health. It is ridiculous. And the giant killer's special ability, which is doing crits on bosses and elites, is very, very useful. But I think the problem is you're probably gonna die before you can even get to a boss if you're using the giant killer, because its effect on normal enemies is just not good. So I'm thinking the one we're going to go with today is over here with the meat skewer. Now, unfortunately, the meat skewer isn't fitting with what looks like the rest of the build will be, but that's okay. I'm thinking this looks like it might be Brutality or Tactics. The meat skewer is one of my favorite weapons to use. It's very broken because that thrust behind is sort of like a built-in roll. It's one of the most effective way to confuse enemies, and it's built into the attack of this weapon, which I think is a little busted, really. Just in terms of the way the weapon works. Although I would not want to see them change it, I love using the meat skewer. You can also get some very, very good damage out of the meat skewer, which is one of my favorite things about it. Oh, that was a very good exploding dummy. So they did, I think, buff the exploding dummy as well, which is good to see because it was less than ideal beforehand. Opa! Get 'em, lads. And those guys who shoot the exploding bolts of new enemies as well, and they're very hard to deal with. It's been real spiky with those guys. Because parrying them doesn't actually reflect their projectile. You just get a kind of explosion right in your face. So it's a bit rude, really. It's not very nice, it's a bit rude. It looks like I've decided to go with a Brutality run today, which is interesting. Because I don't often go Brutality. In the old, before the update, I used to go Tactics runs almost every time. But I'm finding that Tactics is less and less viable in these new updates, so it's interesting to see. There's also actually the option of the Fatal Falls DLC on iPad, which I'm very happy about. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm very much looking forward to it. I do really enjoy playing Dead Cells, and because it doesn't need Wi-Fi, it's one of my favorite things to goof off in class with. I've been goofing off in class quite a bit in maths particularly, just because I don't have the energy to do it anymore. I don't. My brain combusts, I don't understand any of it. If I try and understand it, it just breaks the rest of my day, every other subject. So at this point, I've kind of decided I'm making the noble sacrifice of cutting maths out of my life. And I am perfectly okay with that. Get 'em. Nice, lads. Smack, 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 smack. Oi! The fact that he has a very powerful long-range attack and a very powerful melee attack is quite dangerous with those guys, so you gotta be careful. That amulet just wasn't as good. You have to be a lot more picky about the kind of amulets you're choosing in this new update, because of the way, how much more each scroll counts in this early game. They've also changed the way the Malaise works, and I think it makes a lot more sense, because in the old update, I did kind of figure, if you just gain Malaise when you get hit, isn't it just kind of a different version of health? You know? But now they've changed it up, and I think it's a lot more interesting, a lot more fresh and new, and I'm really enjoying seeing it that way, so... It's funky fresh, for sure, but it's fun funky fresh. I'm not entirely sure, so occasionally you get Malaise cleared, and I'm not entirely sure how it works. I believe it's when you kill enough enemies. It's a very similar one. It also has 2 jumps in midair, but it poisons enemies that wound you. I think I'm going to stay with the Moonstone that I have, though. There's a couple different tactical advantages to keeping starter weapons. Because you're going to gain more money if you can sell something that's not a starter weapon. So it's better if you can prefer to keep your starter weapon. Plus, I just think Moonstone is a prettier amulet than Topaz. This room is quite pretty, but very sad. I think I'm gonna head this way, see what's over here. The other thing the meat skewer does is, I think, give you what might be the fastest method of travel in the game, which is run, roll, jump, skewer. It carries you very fast, especially when you have a speed buff. I believe with velocity, some sort of speed buff, that may be the fastest method of movement in the game. Of course, I don't know for sure, I'm not a speedrunner, so don't at me if I'm wrong. But yeah, that's what I'd say. And look, yep, the map's kicked in. So I think we're going to Promenade, just because I'm always very comfortable in Promenade. It's the one I go to the most. I think people generally find the one that they go to the least, the hardest level. Because my friend, who also plays this game, finds Promenade harder than Toxic Sewers. Whereas I find Toxic Sewers much, much harder. Let's see, what do we have in here? We have a Fire Blast, very good for Brutality. Nice and red. Barnacle probably won't be used, and Wolf Trap probably won't be used, so... Looks like it's Fire Blast it is. Beautiful! Oh. It's nice to get that 30 enemies. I'm getting it less these days, because I'm a bit out of practice. I'm a bit rusty, so... I rarely ever reforge early game. I generally wait till late game. There's the Porky pack I was talking about. I don't have anything in my pack at the moment, so I think I might just go with Disengagement, because I almost never do a run without Disengagement. It's such a useful thing to have, especially in 5 cells. To find the time to heal can be quite hard, so to have Disengagement that gives you that ability to heal it saves my life so many times, and I definitely recommend finding Disengagement if you haven't already. I think it's has to be found in a special way. Oh, almost forgot that I didn't have my shield there and tried to reflect a bomb with my Fire Blast. That would have been interesting. Bam. I love all the animation that's been done in this game. If you look at the way that he starts to crouch, or the way that his stance changes when he's about to fire from his head, it just looks so powerful to me. Oh, time to get out of there. Bam. Infantry Grenade is very interesting. It's one of the most basic weapons in the game, really. But it's quite useful, because its quick reload time means that even though it doesn't do very good damage, you can still get quite a lot of use out of this baby just to put in that little bit extra damage, especially when you're retreating. So, very good weapon to have, Infantry Grenade. I also have in my loadout the Flamethrower Turret, which does quite a bit of damage. Now, it is inadvisable to have 2 different weapons working from the same synergy here. So because I have Fire Blast, I probably don't need Flamethrower Turret, because you can't set an enemy on fire that's already on fire. So I'm not getting that bonus out of the fact that they're both fire weapons. It takes away that bonus. So it'd be ideal if I could change one of them to maybe a poison or bleed synergy. That's Emel's strategy advice of the day. What have we got here? Decoy. Like I said, they did buff Decoy, but it's still not that good. Plus, it's on a Tactics, and I'm definitely going for a Brutality run. Shrapnel Axes are very fun. Some of my favorite weapons in the game, really, and I think you can get some good synergies going with them, but not what I'm going for at the moment. Plus, do want to be saving that money, and like I said, Meat Skewer is one of the best melees to have in the game, so not much upgrading to go from there, except for base damage. A lot of people sleep on Assassin's Dagger because you get it very early in the game, but when combined with Phaser, this thing is broken as hell on 90% of enemies. It's just the very few enemies that don't have a back that give you a problem. But the crits on that thing are disgusting. And Phaser, which basically gives you guaranteed crits on it, it's a broken system. Then again, devs, please don't nerf it because I love using it. That is the duality of man. I'm gonna go up here so we can avoid that bomb as well. Bombs! I got hit. And just as I was talking about avoiding the bombs as well, that's embarrassing. Come over here so I can kill you, asshole. There's some enemies that I encounter in 5 boss cells that I haven't even seen their natural habitat yet. See what I mean? Meat Skewer can be a little bit dangerous, because it often means I just randomly run into situations without knowing, and start swinging without kind of assessing the situation first. Because with Meat Skewer, like I said, with that built-in roll, it almost always works out for you. But with weapons other than Meat Skewer, it generally doesn't tend to work out that well. So Meat Skewer does build some bad habits that you have to shake. Ooh. Not quite, buddy. Not quite at all. Come here. I hate you, coward. That's an Alex Jones moment, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that's another thing. When your melee level gets high enough, some enemies will randomly turn into elites. Hey. Should teleport. No, okay. Note to self, you cannot predict God. What have we got here? Nope, mine's better. Oi! Oof. That was a very close one, and I have no idea how I got through it without taking damage. Oh, and then a bloody rat got me. Now that truly is the duality of man. I had a really good science presentation the other day. I felt very happy about it, and it reminded me that it should be less rare in school to get assignments that you legitimately enjoy completing. If you give a kid enough creative room to do what they want with an assignment, you will almost always end up making that assignment so much better for that kid. Obviously, this isn't applicable to all children in all schooling systems. There are some who, given enough creative freedom, will do something that is objectively bad. But within certain classrooms, especially when you have a segregated AAP system, which our school has, which allows those who are supposedly more academically gifted to kind of be in a class by themselves, I feel like that class would benefit so much from having more freedom to do what they want with... bugger, almost missed that. More freedom to do what they want with their assignments. Because I had fun making that science assignment, I had fun presenting that science assignment, and it looked like everybody had fun watching it, or at least I hope so. I got a lot of laughs. And I really feel like I gained a deeper understanding of the concepts involved because of it. So that's just a note to anybody who wants to become an educator out there, especially curriculum makers, although it's very unlikely that curriculum makers will see this video. Please, allow for that wherever you can. I often say I want to be a teacher, and I do add in the kind of caveat that apparently a lot of kids say they want to be a teacher when they're in school, because that's mainly the thing they've had context for. Most of the people they've liked are probably going to be teachers, especially adults. They won't really have a concept of many other adult jobs, so it's the one that most naturally comes to mind. But I do think that my attraction to teaching might go beyond that. I really feel like I enjoy children's presence, and I enjoy the sensation that I get when I teach somebody something. So I think that is definitely one of the career paths that I might end up going down. Of course, at my age, a lot of people have lots of different ideas about what they're going to do for their career paths, and I'm pretty, very unsure, which makes me very scared. I don't know what I'm going to do or who I'm going to be, and it feels like I'm going into this blind when everybody else isn't. And I just want you to know, if you do feel like that, don't worry. There's lots of other people out there who have no idea what they're going to be. And I'm sure whatever you choose to be, you'll do it amazingly. There's a lot of emphasis placed these days on having a job that you enjoy. And sure, that's true somewhat. You don't want to be slogging away in a job that you hate for most of your life. That being said, I think especially as we're entering areas and cracking into new job markets, our generation, that there's a lot of space to take a job that you might not necessarily want to have long-term, just to break in. Because they do say that our generation will have one of the most diverse job spreads of any generation so far. They say that we're going to move from job to job much more often than our parents or their parents did, which I think is very interesting. It means that we'll be less specialized. Now, Karl Marx had a lot to say about specialization. He thought it was a pretty evil thing. He thought that when you're over-specialized, you can't take joy in your work because you don't see the whole process through. You'll never be a master of one particular craft, only a master of one part of the craft. Now, Karl Marx was talking specifically about production lines, because that was the main issue that faced him back then. I think it's become less of an issue now. That's one of the things I'd point out about Marx that hasn't aged quite so well. There's less production lines. People do tend to be doing kind of entire tasks. That being said, in terms of the job market, I think Marx is in a way becoming more applicable, because he foresaw a time in which machines would do the jobs of laborers, which would mean that a non-educated working class could no longer exist because they couldn't be employed in large amounts. Now, what he foresaw specifically didn't come true. We get away mostly without a big laboring working class. But I think what will really change is when machines start to take over our intellectual jobs, and they've already started. It's pretty widely acknowledged that autonomy, all that kind of stuff, is going to have a massive impact on the jobs market. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how that affects our generation, and I'm scared by it, but I'm interested. That's how a lot of my life seems to be going these days. In fear, but in an excited way. Anyway guys, that is gonna wrap it up for now. This was just a pretty quick review of the new stuff. It wasn't actually that quick, it was a half an hour recording, so yeah. Thank you everybody, thank you for watching. Love you, Ash. Goodbye everybody.